Now, we do have time for a couple of quick questions. So we started session 2 with an overview of global market access. Then we heard from Josie and some of her personal experience and I guess some real passion around what it is we need to protect and secure when it comes to the EU. From Matt, helping us understand a lot more about the opportunities, particularly in Saudi Arabia. And from John, I'd say Alibaba 101, right through to 404. Thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, Brendan.
Oh, g'day, Lisa.
G'day,
Jason Trumpf. Just a quick question in order of your sessions around market access. I'm intrigued, particularly in the beef area. We're major exporters. But I'm thinking as we demand, no tariffs, no quotas, it's got to be a two-way street. And 15 years ago, the states used to have access to here, but due to circumstances, didn't supply much beef here, and then the BSE issue came in. What's our likely response to that issue, that it's got to be a two-way street, and what we're demanding on one hand, and then if you look at the context with pork, where we use a lot of imports and how producers are really struggling. I'm just wondering about the red meat sort of context to all that.
Mr. McKellen, would you like to...
Yeah, I'm not plugged in. I might be. Yes, trade is two-way, absolutely. I mean, we demand that all our overseas customers open their borders to Australian product, and we need to reciprocate. Now, we've already done that in terms of tariffs and quotas. There are no tariffs or quotas at all that Australia imposes on any meat products coming in. But what we do have is very stringent biosecurity rules, and we will maintain those. We can't have an incursion of any disease coming into Australia, and so products that do come in need to pass those biosecurity hurdles. For example, Josie mentioned the pork coming in. It all has to be cooked pork. It's not fresh pork. And so that's just one of the hurdles, and of course a lot of our trading partners say that that's a trade barrier that we impose ourselves. There are a number of applicant countries looking to export their product to Australia. There's 4 that are on the immediate hit list. Japan, the United States, the Netherlands and Vanuatu. But in terms of the 2 major ones there, we are already importing Japanese beef in small volumes, very high priced, but it is coming into Australia as we speak. And there is an application in from the United States of America to export US beef into Australia. Again, they'll have to meet certain conditions regarding importing the product into Australia, including traceability requirements, but it's something that's looming.
Thank you, Andrew. Miho, you have a question.
Hi there. My question is for John. As you know, the Alibaba Group has recently set up Sesame Credit in China, and it's going to have a big impact on lifestyle and purchasing. How could this impact Australian imports into the country?
Yeah, thank you. The Sesame Credit system, which is related to Alipay and Financial, which I'm also overseeing with George Lawson in Australia, really just rewards people for their and short-term loans, and it's a very, very big solution for our SMEs on the platform. I think in terms of someone's score for importing, how does that relate to them importing into China? I think the platform now is very, very intelligent and advanced in working out what product people want. And so previously we entered into Taobao or Tmall, and I'll be boring the Chinese attendees here today, but it had an analogous name to something like 1,000 windows. And when you went in there, you were overwhelmed with products and opportunities there. Now we've looked at people's buying history, and in a way that's got a lot of sophistication behind where they've travelled as well, where they've been spending offline in China. And so there's a great chance to push products and solutions and services to people. And for example, this came to life about a year ago when we took some of our highest spending members on the platform who are classified as our A-Pass members. So this is about the top 1 million people out of 600 million odd users. They're spending over $80,000 US a year on the platform. And if you think about the way that young people spend, that's not necessarily an astounding number if you add on offline and online together. But we curate an annual visit for these consumers, and they're big bloggers in their own right. They have very big followings, a la the Kardashians and others. And so they came down to Australia for 10 days, and we spent 2 days with them up in Saltash at Robert McKenzie's Macca's beef business up there, and we got to meet his father and his children and sniff the ground and do everything that you're meant to do when you visit those places. And this type of consumer were kind of given that privilege due to their kind of spending history on the platform. So that's when I think, having access to this data and knowledge about the layering of the consumers and the diamond and platinum and the various levels of, where they spend is absolutely critical, because the stuff that Macca's are producing up there is like what many of you produce, amongst the best in the world and the type of Angus that they produce. So he doesn't want to be flogging that off to everyone out in West China who's eating hot pot and slicing it thinly and putting it in boiling water or oil with hot chilies. He wants to connect with people who are interested in a barbecue concept or frying or going out to good restaurants and eating it. And so if they can come to his equivalent kind of cellar door and live through that journey, and then we can have... we had one girl on these two twins, the Chu Fei Ren twins, I can get you the details. They blogged over to a couple of million people on that whole afternoon. The things that got the highest viewership were probably the petting zoo and the little Icelandic ponies or whatever they had up there. But it was all part of the story and all part of the journey. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Miho, you have a question.
James Nason from Beef Central. Just a question for Josie. Josie, if we do lose access to the EU quota, what are your market options for the beef you're currently selling in there?
I think it comes back to that point that I made early in our speech. Is I think somehow at some point we've got to look beyond this. I was offered this piece of advice by someone from government the other day. Oh, we believe MLA is looking into some other market options, and nothing's more distressing to an exporter who's just invested 10 years in a market to hear, oh, yep, there could be another option. Of course, Australia does enjoy a diverse range of market options, but while we continue to invest in branded beef supply chains, and while we continue to invest in working with individuals, we have to keep thinking up a level in terms of, I feel we're still thinking trade in a commodity style, and I know that just sounds really futuristic and, but I think it's got to be a collective, if we're going to invest like we are in supply chain, then we have to think about how trade policy moves to support that. In the EU at the moment, there's a huge push on, fair supply chains and, from their agricultural department. And when I, went back to that, and Patrick made the point really strongly, but I cut him off, that this has really favoured small and medium exporters, this specific quota, and from both their side and ours, and I think we've got to highlight that, and we've got to really shine a light on those types of deals as the future.
We have a question just down here. Maybe Samantha, you're close enough. Just one moment, sir. Yeah.
Josie, Dan Lynch, how many accredited US processors are there?
Sorry, sir, if I
To
can
go
get you to
into-
repeat that. We're just recording.
How many US processors are accredited to go into the EU market?
So, and my slide was potentially a little facetious when I compared 3,500 to 14. We are we both have a requirement to publicise our accredited producers. Obviously, in America, at a producer level, they're actually really just like signing an NVD. So their NHTC program for China is exactly the same as their NHTC program for Europe. Our ability to supply hormone-free product into China and to Europe is obviously vastly different. So the 14 people that are accredited on that printed list when you go onto the USDA website are a combination of feedlots and processors, but so it's essentially an accredited supplied group over there. Yeah. But I guess the short answer is that I think it's and there's something like 150,000 head currently within, and I think that number came from Steve Kay, within an NHTC program at the moment. So, to give this quota, 80% of this quota to the US, there is an absolutely real risk that it's not filled, which, from an EU perspective is a bit disingenuous as well.
Thank you so much. We'll move through this question time. I actually would want to say thank you to you, Andrew, but especially to Josie, to Matt, and to John. For these very busy individuals leading their own businesses and executives within large organisations to give us this time this afternoon. I really want to say thank you. So on behalf of Meat and Livestock Australia, thank you so much.